I'd like to call to order the March 7th meeting of the Brentwood Board of Aldermen. If you would all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Administrator, are you filling the clerk's role as well? All right. I'll take the roll. How about that? Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Alderman Slusser.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderman Kramer.
Present.
Alderman Toohey.
Here.
Alderman Leahy.
Here.
Alderwoman Manistar.
Here.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Here.
Got everybody present and accounted for. Item number 3 on the agenda, the approval of the agenda for the Board of Aldermen meeting March 7th, 2016. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Alderman Toohey.
To make an amendment that we move up the executive session to after approval of the minutes.
Actually, if could we make that 5B? Would that work?
5B will work.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. If you would allow a friendly amendment, might I also recommend that we put a time limit on the closed session of 15 minutes?
I'll second that.
So that the people who are for the rest of the
Right.
evening's business might be.
I'll amend the motion for the time limit.
All right.
Still second.
Alderman Manistar, are you okay with that?
I'm fine.
Okay, no,
No.
I thought you were asking questions. So. All right, so it's been moved and seconded that the item number 19 on the agenda, the closed session, be moved to item 5B and last no longer than 15 minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Alderwoman Saunders.
I just don't think it's a good idea to put a time limit on a topic that you don't know what direction it's going to take. It's just my personal opinion. It was scheduled for the end of the meeting, so I apologize that we have to keep residents waiting, but I think it's better process to make sure that you have adequate time to discuss an issue.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman Manistar,
Yes.
Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders,
No?
Alderman Slusser,
Yes.
Alderman Toohey.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries and the agenda has been amended to put the closed session at item 5B and a time limit of 15 minutes. Are there any further amendments to tonight's agenda? Okay,
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Item number 4 on the agenda, consideration and approval of minutes of the meeting of February 16th, 2016. Are there any amendments to the minutes as they were submitted? Seeing none, by acclamation, can we approve the minutes of the February 16th meeting?
Yeah.
Great. Item number 5 on the agenda. This is fun stuff. So, is Mr. O'Halloran present? I'm guessing he's the one wearing all the merit badges.
It's under your desk.
It was on your.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I wondered if we had another copy. I'm going to have Alderman Kramer read the proclamation. If you go ahead and come forward to the podium.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. O'Halloran, sorry, I'll just introduce it real quick. So Mr. O'Halloran has achieved something that I've always been envious of. I petered out at Life Scout, but Mr. O'Halloran has become an Eagle Scout, and we're going to recognize him this evening. So if Alderman Kramer would be so kind as to read the proclamation.
Yes, Your Honor. From the city of Brentwood in the state of Missouri, this proclamation comes in recognition of Eagle Scout James O'Halloran. Whereas the purpose of the Boy Scouts of America, incorporated on February 8th, 1910, and chartered by Congress in 1916, is to provide an educational program for boys and young adults to build character, to train in the responsibilities of participating in citizenship, and to develop personal fitness. And whereas James O'Halloran has been an active member of Boy Scout Troop 361, sponsored by St. Mary Magdalene Parish since August 2012. And whereas James has worked in the scouting program through the ranks of Scout, Tenderfoot, Second Class, First Class, Star, and Life ranks, and served in leadership positions and as a member of the Order of the Arrow. And whereas James has completed hours of community service, participating in camping and hiking programs, and completed the Leave No Trace Achievement Award. And whereas James completed his Eagle Scout Award on September 2nd, 2015, by organizing and leading his crew in the construction of a new indoor nativity stable for St. Mary Magdalene Church. His crew consisted of 7 adults and 10 youth, required over 229 man-hours. The new stable was used for the first time during the 2015 holiday season. And whereas through his active community involvement and good citizenship, James has demonstrated his personal character of living the Scout oath and law in his daily life, and is shown to be an asset to our Brentwood community through his community service. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Christopher Thornton, by the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, and on behalf of the Board of Aldermen for the city of Brentwood, do hereby congratulate Eagle Scout James O'Halloran for his intensive accomplishments, and further urge everyone to continue to support the Boy Scouts of America in their endeavors. Presented and dated this day, this has the 19th day of January 2016.
That was the meeting we had originally planned to present this. So,
Christopher A. Thornton, Mayor.
hey, and congratulations, James. That's a heck of an accomplishment, and you should be very proud. All right, so with that, folks, we're going to go into a closed session for no more than 15 minutes. I would look for us to reconvene here at 7:25. Again, my apologies, but it's necessary. So we will go into closed session upstairs, and we will reconvene down here in the open session at 7:25.
Do we have to make a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. We need the motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
That we go into closed session.
It's been moved and seconded that the board go into closed session pursuant to the legal exception 610.
021-1.
610-011. Is
Consult
there
with counsel.
any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please. Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman Manistar.
Yes.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Yes.
Alderman Slusser.
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
All right, upstairs.
Can we leave everything else here?
Yeah.
Back from executive session.
Okay, we'll resume the meeting. Item number 6 on the agenda, public hearing. We don't have any public hearings this evening. Item number 7 on the agenda, bids. 7A, Firehouse HVAC preventive maintenance.
Chief Jury. Chief Jury.
Chief Jury has information for the board on this.
Good evening. This proposal was done in conjunction with the recently passed proposal for the rec center for HVAC preventive maintenance. We joined in with them, and I gotta give Eric all the credit. He did all the legwork on this project. Thank you, Eric. When we got the proposal back, it was over budget for the first year, so we contacted Attorney O'Keefe, and he gave us permission to do some negotiating with State Mechanical, which we did, and we're able to get their first year's proposal down to within our budget. And so this is a proposal for a 3-year term for HVAC preventive maintenance. And the total cost for the 3 years comes to $53,683. Other than that, everything seems to be in place, and we're ready to go with this once approval from the board.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the chief? Alderman Leahy.
Chief, in the memo that we were given, the prior group that you had kind of liked working with was at $5,700. Is that $5,700 a year
Correct.
to work with? So we've got a $6,400 for this year, balance of this year. But then it jumps to 22,000. Now, is that 22,000 covering all the facilities, or is that covering just the firehouse?
It's covering just the firehouse, and what we were doing previously, what we were getting for the 5,700, and then actually that was the first year when we had Dow heating and cooling. Then the second year went up to 6,400, but that was only for 2 preventive maintenances a year. Our system requires 4 preventive maintenances a year, and we have not had 4 now for several years. If you recall, the city went, for all their buildings, they went with Vogel a couple years ago to do the preventive maintenance. Vogel came in with a very low bid. The city accepted that, and quite frankly, we were paying $2,200 a year. We got 2 preventive maintenances, and they were actually very poor. The job they were doing was not even worth the $2,200 that we were paying. The proposal from State Mechanical is for 4 preventive maintenances a year. This is a very expensive system that's in the firehouse. It's the same one that's also in the rec center. It's not cheap to maintain, quite frankly. And so this will get us where we need to be with our preventive maintenance.
If I recall a comment that Director Grunfelder made at our last meeting, it was something to the effect that the cost savings on the heating and cooling bill were more than enough to offset the increased maintenance cost. But I could be misquoting
And
that, but
that's
that
my
was the general
understanding,
idea.
That is my understanding also.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Yes, the initial bid that they sent us, 53,000 was for year 1, correct? Was it 53,000 just for year 1?
No, no.
53.
That's for
Alderman
the
Saunders,
3-year
could-
contract.
Can you move the mic a little closer? Yeah.
Okay.
That's for the 3-year contract.
Now it is, but when the initial bid, it was kind of the bid addendum that we had. Unfortunately, I left my Surface Pro at home. But the bid addendum we had, the paragraph had the information about the ice rink, but at the top it said firehouse proposal, and it said year 53,000, and then it was amended to 6,400.
No, that's incorrect. The first year, on the first proposal that we received, year 1 was $16,125. And then year 2, it goes to $22,898.
Okay,
And year 3, it goes to $24,000.
okay. And will they be repairing the system at all, or is that, who installed the system I know we're having the issues with?
Pardon?
Who installed the system, the HVAC, who's been working on it
I don't
presently?
remember, I don't recall the name of the company that did the install off the top of my head. But this is not the company that did the install. They're simply going to do preventive maintenance, which means throughout the firehouse, we have many, many what they call cassettes. They're all through the firehouse. Every one of them has to be taken down, cleaned, filters cleaned. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a system that actually sits in the ceiling outside of my office that's as big as a Volkswagen up in the ceiling. It has to be completely disassembled, cleaned, and so forth. It's a big job.
Okay.
It usually takes a week to do the preventive maintenances.
The addendum said that they would be, section 2 of the RFP, that they would be obligated by that. It pointed out that that was theirs. And in the opening paragraph of that, it says that they have to make the system like new. Is this going to be the repair of the system, the HVAC?
No,
This is simply the maintenance of the existing system, the repair of the system to allow it to cool the way it was supposed to is actually a separate thing that's
Separate issue.
still in progress.
It's
Right.
still in progress?
Yes.
That's not, okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
This is just
Okay.
preventative
This is
maintenance.
just taking care of what we have
Okay,
properly.
but I just wanted to
allow
make
for it.
sure that, are we going to be in a position where they can come in and do the preventative maintenance since the system isn't presently working?
This should not affect that. This is just routine preventive maintenance that needs to occur no matter what happens to keep the system working at its optimal.
Okay, and when Dole was doing $5,200 or $5,700, that was for 2 times?
Correct.
But now it'll be 22,000 for 4 times instead of like
It'll
about
be-
12,000?
The first year will be $6,400,
Okay,
and then the second year it goes to $22,000, and that will be for 4 times a year.
and I guess that's some of the first year being pushed into the,
Well, the first year, under the $6,400 that we're asking for, we're simply getting, this is a modified bid, we're only getting 2 preventive maintenances for the entire year. Then next year, in 2017, it'll go up to 4 preventive maintenances, and that's the schedule we'll stay on from here on out.
Okay, and at 6,400 with 2 maintenances, you would think it to be more around 12,000 or 13,000 for 4. Why
They were
is
willing to
that?
work with us on this since this is the amount we had budgeted. So
Okay.
State Mechanical, basically, they're gracious. They came back and said, we'll work with you on this.
Okay,
So,
and we were satisfied with Dole. We moved to Vogel, but we were satisfied with Dole, but we think that it's important, even though it's double the cost of what even they were, even with the 4 maintenance, the Dole was 5,700, so 4 would have been with Dole 12,000. You think it's worth 22 for the same 4 with State Mechanical?
I do. State Mechanical's got a good reputation. Eric knows them well from his dealing with them at the rec center.
Okay,
I think they're going to do fine. I was very satisfied with Dowell, but as a city, we went in a different direction.
okay,
And so we're getting back to where we need to be.
okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the chief? Okay, seeing that, thank you. Item number 7B on the agenda, bid selection, right-of-way negotiator services. I believe Director Nomsen has some information for the board on this one.
Staff requested proposals for right-of-way negotiator services. This is for acquisition of permanent and temporary easements for the Hanley Industrial Court project. MoDOT approved right-of-way negotiators. We requested 4 bids, or we solicited 4 bids, and we ended up getting 2 back from Orr Colon and BHE Consultants. Or Colon was at $34,450 for 12 parcels. BHE was at $29,400 for 12 parcels. There's several differences in their bids. Or Colon included costs for title reports where BHE did not, which was approximately $3,600. And there's different ways of estimating easement values. BHE thought that all the easement costs would be under $10,000, where or Colon thinks there will be 4 of them that will be over $10,000, which also means there's going to be appraisals that have to be done, and a qualified appraiser is going to have to do them, so there'll be added costs. Whether or not BHE find them to come up over that, they'll still have to charge us for that. So he did not include those costs, which was, I believe, $10,800. So staff feels that we should go with Orr Colon, who also did the Woodsinger project.
Are there any questions for Director Nomsen? Alderman Slesser.
So who's going to, so if they don't need appraisals, will we not get charged for them then?
We will
or-
not be charged for those.
And who's going to
appraisals.
determine whether, I guess when we start
I
negotiating?
guess when they negotiate. Right.
If the people come forward and say we want 10,100, then we're going to have to get appraisals, and if,
And appraisal reviews, correct.
okay, thank you.
And they notify staff, they give us continuous updates throughout the process so that we know,
Okay,
or
thank you.
Colin would.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Jim, is this 34,450, is that in that total project cost, or is this in addition?
Yes, it is.
It is in
Is
that?
in the total cost, correct.
Okay.
And they're assuming that there'll be 4 properties that will be appraised over 10,000, where BHE did not. So they didn't include those appraisal costs and reviews costs.
Thank you.
Alderman Saunders, you had your hand up.
Oh, I was just saying they're entitled to donate the property for the improvements if they want.
That is an option.
Right, an option. Oh, no, that's what I meant, is it was an option. I knew we had to. if
For the
they-
record, it's always an option to donate your property to the city.
And some, we have some good residents along Litzinger that did for $1 for the sidewalk improvements.
I know we did, and
So, it's an option.
hey, I think that's one of the best ways to get sidewalks.
Absolutely.
Are there any further questions for Director Nomsen? All right, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Your Honor, at this time, may I do a point of order?
Of course.
I'd like to go back to the approval of the agenda, and I'd like to make a recommendation that the board entertain adding a bill under Section 10, potential bill number 6053 for a first reading only, if we could fix the agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we amend tonight's agenda to include at 10A bill number 6, first reading of bill number 6053. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of amending the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, the amendment will be so amended. For those of you in the audience, Bullard, do we have copies of 6053?
We do.
Okay. For anybody who's in the audience, copies of bill number 6053 will be available just outside the door, or just at the end of the desk here. It'd be probably easier. Item number 8 on the agenda, hearing of any member of public interest upon the request of any person present. If anybody would like to address the board, please come forward, and you will be given 3 minutes to address the board of aldermen.
Louise Charbonneau, 8833 Madge. I would like to speak to bill number 6051 concerning the site plan approval for 253339 Brentwood Boulevard. Is this the appropriate time? I didn't see a time for audience to speak when you get to take up the bill. So, Mr. Parliamentarian, is this the appropriate time for me to speak to this bill?
You can speak to whatever you want for 3 minutes, so.
Thank you very
feel
much.
free.
Believe me, nobody wants to have a meeting where I get to push my personal mute button more than me. I have some handouts. One is just a code citation, and 2 are sets of...
Yeah, could you give those to the city administrator, please?
Well, these are pictures.
Okay, just, yeah, give them to Paul.
Do you want them back?
I made 2 sets of those. I thought they could start at each end. And then this is just a code citation with regard to dumpsters. Okay. That's what I want. May I proceed?
I'll take it. Go into the...
Okay. You take that copy? Thank you, ma'am. I took pictures and I made a code citation with regard to fencing dumpsters. These are 2 issues that I didn't feel were sufficiently addressed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. As you know, I attend all of the meetings. I attend site plan. One is fencing along the rear side of the property, which would be the west end, and the other is the dumpsters. I have pictures in the code citation, and I also have a note from a neighbor. Is it possible for me to read into the record a note from neighbor Faith Beckerman?
Sure.
Okay. Mayor, members of the Board of Aldermen, I would love to have been here tonight. However, I'm under the weather and unable to attend in person as I would have liked to. I prepared this statement for Louise to read in my absence. When the new owner of the Pasta House property erected his new fence, he graded the adjacent property, removing a natural berm, which exposed more of the rear of the building to my view. I see the back of this building in the fencing every time I park my car, every day when I take the dog out. It takes away from my enjoyment of my own yard. And she closes with, good fences make good neighbors. Sincerely, Faith Beckerman. She's at 8823 Madge. The last picture in that packet that I gave you is a picture from Faith's backyard, 5 houses away. Commissioner Smith brought up the issue of the fence at P&Z, and it just dropped like a lead balloon in the room. And one of the other commissioners made the remark that the adjacent property is vacant. Well, it doesn't really matter if the adjacent property is vacant when this lady who lives 5 houses away still has a view. So my petition is for you, if you can, amend the site plan tonight. It's not my intention to hold up Mr. Hagan in any way. I know he wants to get to work. But if you look at the western edge of the commercial properties coming down Brentwood Boulevard, the best transition, which is plan speak for between commercial and residential, seems to be stockade fencing. This has to be the last 100 foot on the whole of Brentwood Boulevard that doesn't have it. And it would make a big difference. And then my other issue is the dumpsters. And all those pictures that I took are from the sidewalk, with exception, yeah, those are all from the sidewalk, and the one is from Faith's backyard. And then I think Ms. Bola passed out the code citation with regard to dumpsters. And there was some small discussion of dumpsters at the P&Z or the site plan, I don't recall which one. And there's a problem with enclosing them where they sit now because there's a drive that runs from the north side of Mr. Hagan's property and comes around. But I don't know where that would absolve adherence to this code section. So I've had a petitioner who went before P&Z tell me that they just wanted me to sit down and be quiet. I've had 2 petitioners before the P&Z patronize me with the phrase, change is hard. Well, I won't be bullied, and change is life. The seasons change, the kids grow up. I'll tell you what's hard. Carelessness, lack of respect, and greed. Those are hard. Please amend the site plan tonight if that's appropriate. It is not my intention to stall Mr. Hagan, and as always, thank you for listening, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward and address the board?
Are we getting the pictures? I know Tom was looking at them.
I guess.
Hello. Karen Meyer, 8726 Pine Avenue. I left town last month wondering why the newly installed curb at Pine Avenue on the east side of Brentwood Boulevard did not have handicap access cut. And I came back to town to find out that the curb is still there, and now we've got these nice dollops of asphalt pushed up against the brand-new curb. So I'm wondering, is the contractor who's doing the curbing for Brentwood Boulevard, are they doing right by the city? And is the city doing right by the residents? Because I would assume that after waiting so long, that Brentwood Boulevard and the adjacent curbs would be of top-notch quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to come forward and address the board? Going once? Going twice? All right, we're going to close public comment. Would any of the aldermen care to respond? Okay, seeing none?
Your Honor, I thought you might want to respond to her curb request. You addressed it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, actually, I was just going to grab you after the meeting, but so yeah, actually, I think if you all will, coming out in like a matter of a day or two is the newsletter, the city newsletter, and my letter or my portion of the newsletter will actually address, I think, everything that you just asked about. But the long story short is, yes, it's a high priority for the county, but unfortunately, because of the type of asphalt that they're going to lay down, it can't be done until summer, is what it amounts to. Yeah, it's a long and complicated thing, but it's called super pave, and it has to be 55 degrees on the ground.
I'm not talking about the road. I'm talking about why isn't the new curb handicap access?
It will be.
It will be. They're not finished with it. They can't be finished with
Well,
it.
they're going to have to tear it out to put new in again.
Well, you said Pine and Brentwood Boulevard? Okay, well,
That has been brought to their attention. They will address it.
Okay. That's why I wasn't going to say anything, because I don't know anything.
But there are several with those patches,
They
right?
intend to address all of them.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along. Item number 9 on the agenda, unfinished business. I don't believe we have any this evening. Item number 10A is first reading of bill number 6053 by title only, please, Mr. City Attorney.
Bill number 6053, first reading and ordinance amending section 215.1330 and 215.1340 relating to prohibitions against sex offenders in certain facilities being in proximity to child care facilities and schools.
Okay, and this evening we don't have a synopsis for this bill, so I'll give you as brief a synopsis as I can. The gist of it is that this bill would expand the city's current ordinance prohibiting the presence of sex offenders in certain locations, and it would broaden it to include certain additional locations and certain other types of convicted felons. So, with that said, are there any questions from the Board of Aldermen? Alderman Plufka.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Attorney, the proposed change in Section 215-1330B talks about businesses intended, designed, or operated. Is the use of the phrase operated a concern about whether it might be construed as being a little too vague in terms of whether we're operating a business that might serve to attract persons?
I don't believe so. I think it's probably fairly readily capable of application. And the issue is, as businesses might morph through, as opposed to what they start out intending to do, and perhaps their clientele would change or the focus would change. So it's intended to address circumstances where businesses or facilities evolve over time so that they don't attain some sort of pre-existing use status.
Thank you. That's the only question I had.
Thank you. Alderman Leahy.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, when we define 500 feet, this is from the four corners of the property in question, or is there an actual definition in our code that defines how that 500 foot is measured?
The ordinance would amend these sections to provide a specific measurement technique, as you will see in the ordinance, and it is measured not necessarily from the four corners, but from the nearest point on the lot line of one to the nearest point on the lot line of the other.
Thank you, sir. I wasn't aware and I needed to get educated. Thank you.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor. Another question for the city attorney, if I might.
Sure.
Just a point of clarification. So is the intention of this bill to bring us more in line with the language of state statute and to expand upon our existing code language?
Your current provisions are not in sync, with all the related provisions in state law. This brings you more closely aligned with that, and also furthers the purpose of your existing ordinances by way of the conduct that's encompassed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none. We'll move along. Item 11 on the agenda, bills to be given second reading. We don't have any this evening. Item number 12 on the agenda, 12A, bills to be given first and second reading. First up, bill number 6046. Mr. City Attorney, by title only, please.
Bill number 6046, first reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to execute a contract on behalf of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, with State Mechanical Services Incorporated HVAC services at the Brentwood Fire Station.
Okay, thank you. Synopsis, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The subject of a previous bid selection conversation, bill number 6046, a first and second reading, preventative maintenance and repair services for the refrigeration HVAC services for the fire department of the city of Brentwood, seeking approval for an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into a one-year contract with an option for two one-year extensions with State Mechanical Services, that for preventative maintenance and repair services for the HVAC system in the city of Brentwood's fire station, contained within bill number 6046.
All right, thank you. Are there any additional questions? I mean, we just heard from the chief on this, so does any member of the board have any additional questions? Alderwoman Saunders?
Is there a better reason to go with State Mechanical than Dole, or is it just to keep them all with, that we're using the same vendor for the ice rink and the rec center and then for the firehouse?
Parks Department issued an RFP, and we only received one bid, or one proposal, and that was from State Mechanical.
Okay.
Nobody else
Okay.
issued a proposal.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, Mr. City Attorney, second reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6046, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to execute a contract on behalf of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, with State Mechanical Services Incorporated HVAC services at the Brentwood Fire Station.
We have a motion to perfect, please.
Motion to perfect Bill 6046 into ordinance form.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the board perfect bill number 6046 into ordinance form. Is there any discussion at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman Manistar?
Yes.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderman Saunders?
Yes.
Alderman Slusser?
Yes.
Alderman Tui?
Yes.
Bill number 6046 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen and upon signature by the mayor becomes ordinance number 4699.
Thank you. Item number 12B on the agenda, bill number 6047. Mr. City Attorney, first reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6047, first reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement between the city of Brentwood, Missouri, the Regional Justice Information Service, and Forte Payment Systems Incorporated for online payment services.
Okay, thank you. Synopsis, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Bill 6047, the first and second reading, the Municipal Court Online Payment Services Bill. And this covers an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or a city administrator to enter into a contract and execute that agreement between the city of Brentwood, Missouri, and Regional Justice Information Services, Regis, and Forte Payment Systems Incorporated, that for an online payment system service. The online payment system allows for the payment of traffic tickets and other ordinance violations from the link on the city's website. There is no cost to the city for this service. The combined 5.5% processing fee required by both parties is charged to the user. Staff requests a first and second reading of the same meeting, and this is all contained in bill number 6047.
All right, thank you. And I believe that our court administrator is here to answer any questions that the board might have or provide any information. Yeah. Come forward. Go ahead. Alderman Slesser.
Good evening. Will the 5.5% be, it's going to be a multiple point question. Will the 5.5 come into our account and then that we'll pay that later, or is it taken out ahead of time?
No, it's taken out ahead of time.
Okay, so this won't be counting towards our 12.5% for Senate Bill 5?
No, it
Okay.
has nothing to do with that.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Leahy.
Let's go back to the 5.5%.
Yes, sir.
Our current code establishes what those fines will be. I get a ticket for speeding. I pay the fine. At what point does our code establish that the defendant has to pay the extra finance fee? Because now you're charging me something greater than your code authorizes. How do I get around that?
Chris, do you want to answer that, or should
He
I?
doesn't, a person doesn't have to pay that fee. That is
Online.
their choice.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make
Yes.
sure that we,
No.
because this is a payment offer. If they don't
Right.
like the 5.5,
They
they
can-
come back up here to the city hall
Yes.
and
Or-
pay at the window.
Right.
Or
But if-
pay it over the phone.
All right.
Yes.
City
Or-
attorney, we don't have to put anything in our code then that makes this possible.
No, sir.
Thank you.
I think it was referred to as a courtesy fee.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, second reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6047. I got lost there for a minute. I apologize. Those little naps are terrific. Bill number,
Now that you're refreshed.
Bill 6047, second reading and consideration for adoption, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement between the city of Brentwood, Missouri, the Regional Justice Information Service, and Forte Payment Systems Incorporated for online payment services.
All right, thank you.
Move to perfect Bill 6047 into ordinance form.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the board perfect bill number 6047 into ordinance form. Is there any discussion from the board? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Luckmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman Manister,
Yes.
Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders,
Yes.
Alderman Slesser,
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Bill number 6047 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen and upon signature by the mayor becomes ordinance number 4700.
All right, thank you. Item number 12C on the agenda, bill number 6048. Mr. City Attorney, first reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6048, first reading, an ordinance amending section 110.200 of the Brentwood City Code to clarify the process for establishing compensation for officers and employees of the city.
Thank you. Synopsis, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Bill number 6048, our first and second reading this evening, establishing the compensation for elected officials and employees. This bill covers an ordinance amending our section 110.200 of the Brentwood City Municipal Code to clarify the process for establishing compensation for officers and employees of the city. The Brentwood Municipal Code states currently that the Board of Aldermen shall fix the compensation of all officers and city employees on an annual basis in connection with the adoption of the annual budget. With this amendment, the code will now state that the salary of an officer elected or appointed for the fixed term shall not be changed during the time for which he or she is elected or appointed. Any change in compensation of elected officials should be performed by separate ordinance instead of using the existing budget. Ways and Means Committee has reviewed and recommended approval of the language included in Bill number 6048.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the Alderman on this? Alderman Leahy.
If I may, I'm under the impression, I guess, Mr. O'Keefe, if I can direct the question to you, we are not allowed to change any elected or appointed position until the seat becomes up for a re-election, correct?
Till the term expires.
Expires. So I'm not sure what this bill is doing that is not already in state statute and in our code. I need a clarification as to why I need this bill.
It tracks the provisions of Section 79-270, specially applicable to fourth-class cities. And it is, as the title indicates, it clarifies for those who had any uncertainty and brings into the city's code the prohibition against changing compensation, which was not otherwise articulated here, although it is articulated in state statute. It probably makes this more convenient to those who would administer the city's ordinances.
Second question, if I may. The word in this bill is compensation. Under state statute, the clarification is salary.
Actually, both terms are used in the bill.
Okay, in the reading of your title only, you're only dealing with the compensation, which is more encumbersome than just the salary change. And that was a problem that we had when we did the insurances and all of this as to what allowed and what would not allow us to make changes without being in conflict with the state statute. So I'm questioning if we need to write this bill in conformance with state statutory arrangements so we don't start a confusion again.
The language added to the last clause of the bill.
Yes, sir.
Of 110.200 is taken directly from Section 79-270, which is cited in the first prefatory clause, such that it is the salary shall not be changed during the term. The language where we have the use of the term compensation mirrors your existing language in the first sentence, which says that the board shall fix compensation for all officers and employees in connection with adoption of the budget. And the second sentence then says, as to officials elected or appointed to a fixed term, a subspecies of all officers or employees, that compensation shall be specified in a separate ordinance. Then the last clause adds that salary shall not be changed. The salary language comes from 79-270. The compensation reference comes from your existing provision and is, I believe, also in keeping with the constitutional provision against changing compensation during a term. So, does that answer your question?
It does, but it makes me question whether any actions that we've taken in the past have been legal.
Absolutely.
Yes, they're legal because the board, the majority of the board voted to make them such.
I have no reason to believe that they have been inappropriate, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Alderman Schlesser.
Well, if Alderman Leahy's answer, if his questions have been answered, then I had nothing else to add. I was just going to say what I believe the reason why we're bringing this forward. But if you're satisfied, then there's no reason to.
Thank you, sir.
Alderman Saunders.
I agree. The reason was transparency. Since I was the one, we thought it was more transparent to have it done under separate ordinance. The opening, since Alderman Leahy's brought this up, the opening where it says, whereas Section 79-270 requires that compensation, is 79-270 used as you, I just wanted to make sure I understood that. It uses the word compensation in that beginning portion, and it uses the term salary as far as when you can change it with regard to changes?
I don't have it with me. Let me go look at it, and I'll be with you instantaneously.
Okay. And based on seeing you have done this for Richmond Heights, where they have their elected officials. Oh, I thought your name was at the bottom.
He is not their attorney.
No, I mean in the past. But what?
I've never been their attorney.
If for some reason you have to wait till both cycles go through before you can change the salary. Is that correct? If
Say
half
again?
the board, I know that's not how we've done it in the past, but if we change the salary, for instance, after the next election, do you have to wait for both sides of the board to go through before you can change it, or is it immediately after that election for both sides?
The board can lawfully fix new compensation to go into effect when the terms of office of the incumbents to a term are expired. So if on January 1st, the board says compensation for the office of alderman will now be $53,000 a year, which I doubt you would do, but you might.
No.
Then that would be effective for those elected in April of that year, and the incumbents in the other offices would continue at their old paltry salary. And then the new officers, the new aldermen elected the April of the following year would get the princely sum so specified.
And can you reduce the salary at any time, the compensation at any time?
Not under 79-270. And by the way, it does use the term compensation. It states the Board of Aldermen shall have the power to fix the compensation of all officers and employees of the city by ordinance, hence the language in your current ordinance. But the salary of an officer shall not be changed during the term for which he was elected or appointed. So we have tracked the language of the statute. If there's ambiguity or conflict there, we can thank our legislature.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, Mr. City Attorney, second reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6048, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance amending section 110.200 of the Brentwood City Code to clarify the process for establishing compensation for officers and employees of the city.
Move to perfect Bill 6048 into ordinance form.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that the board perfect bill number 6048 into ordinance form. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman Manister?
Yes.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
Alderman Slusser?
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Bill number 6048 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen and upon signature by the mayor becomes ordinance number 4701.
All right, thank you. Item number 12D on the agenda, bill number 6049. Mr. City Attorney, first reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6049, first reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute a contract with St. Louis County, Missouri for a mosquito control service, and authorizing and directing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into, on behalf of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, a contract with St. Louis County, Missouri for mosquito control services.
All right, thank you.
Isn't that the
Synopsis,
same thing twice?
Beg your pardon?
Yes.
Doesn't it say the same thing twice? It's a title so nice, we read it twice.
You know, we do
All
that
right.
sometimes.
Can we have a synopsis, please?
Yes, Your Honor. I'll read this just one time. Bill 6049, the first and second reading, the St. Louis County Mosquito Larvicide Services. And this has to do with the city has adopted an ordinance entering into a contract with St. Louis County Department of Health and Mosquito Control Services. If enacted, it begins in February 2000. It began in 2011. The current contract expired in February 2016. This contract term is for a total of 5 years and would be for adulticiding and larviciding as the city of Brentwood provides fogging services. Staff has reviewed and recommended approval of the contract in the first and second reading at the same meeting, once again contained in the bill language of 6049.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the Board of Aldermen? Alderman Plufka.
It was mentioned in the synopsis, but I just want to be clear, talking to our city administrator, this is the larvicide program that has nothing to do with the fogging program that is administered by our Public Works Department.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions from the Alderman? Okay, seeing none, Mr. City Attorney, second reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6049, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute a contract with St. Louis County, Missouri for mosquito control service, and authorizing and directing it to enter into, on behalf of the city, a contract with St. Louis County, Missouri for mosquito control services.
All right, thank you.
Motion to perfect Bill 6049 into ordinance form.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that the board perfect Bill number 6049 into ordinance form. Is there any discussion from the board? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman Manistor.
Yes.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Yes.
Alderman Slusser.
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Bill number 6049 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen, and upon signature by the mayor, becomes ordinance number 4702.
All right, thank you. Item number 12E on the agenda, bill number 6050. Mr. City Attorney, first reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6050, first reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into an easement agreement between the city of Brentwood and Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District.
Thank you. Synopsis, please.
Yes, thanks, Your Honor. Bill number 6050, the first and second reading for the MSD and City of Brentwood agreement, that for the Project Clear project. This bill is for an ordinance between the City of Brentwood authorizing the mayor and our city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement between our city and Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District, MSD, for electrical easements related to the MSD project 10021 DC-02 and DC-03 Sanitary Relief Phase 1 as a part of Project Clear. MSD has submitted a plat with Ameren, Missouri, and those drawings show the relocation of the power lines where the 6 new easements for the work associated with the Project Clear are to be required. All this is contained within the language of provided bill number 6050.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Alderman Slusser.
Just housekeeping, it says enter into and easement agreement. Should it say execute, or does it matter, or enter?
Actually, and should be an.
Okay, do we need to amend that in our, or does it matter?
It's a Scrivener's error, and we'll correct it on the execution copy.
Nothing else.
Any further questions? Seeing none, Mr. City Attorney, second reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6050, second reading and consideration for adoption, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into an easement agreement between the city of Brentwood and Metropolitan Sewer District.
Thank you.
Move to perfect Bill 6050 into ordinance form.
Second, Your Honor.
It has been moved and seconded that the board perfect bill number 6050 into ordinance form. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman Manistor.
Yes.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Yes.
Alderman Slusser.
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Bill number 6051 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen, and upon signature by the mayor, becomes ordinance number 4704.
All right, thank you. Item number 12F on the agenda, bill number 6051. Mr. City Attorney, first reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6051, first reading, an ordinance granting site plan approval to 2533-2539 Brentwood Boulevard, Pasta Pronto, for a new facade and related improvements, which requires site plan approval pursuant to Title IV, Chapter 400 of the Brentwood Code of Ordinances, case number 1601, South Brentwood Partners.
I beg your pardon, Your Honor.
Sorry.
Point of order, we have the recently passed bill number 6050, and it was read that the ordinance number would be 4704. I believe, just checking, it might be 4703.
It is.
4703, that's correct.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Synopsis of bill number 6050,
Yes,
6051.
Yes, Your Honor. This has to do with the site plan for the Pasta House Pronto, case number 16-01, South Brentwood Partners. This bill covers an ordinance granting site plan approval to 2533-2539 Brentwood Boulevard, the Pasta House Pronto location, and that for a new facade and related improvements which require site plan approval pursuant to Title IV, Chapter 400 of the Brentwood Code of Ordinances. Our staff has recommended the first and second reading to take place at the same meeting. Planning and Zoning Commission of Brentwood passed a motion by a vote of 8-0 unanimously, recommending the Board of Aldermen approve the architectural elevations and site plan for 2533 Brentwood Boulevard with the following conditions. Item number 1, to include 2 planters. Urns in the center of the primary facade is approved by staff. Number 2, to install wall sconces in the center of the primary facade is approved by staff. Number 3, to install a planter at the unused curb cut as approved by the planning director. All these items and more contain the language of Bill Number 6051.
All right, thank you. Director Stryler is here. I believe he'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have. Alderman Plufka.
I actually have a question for the applicant. Would that come at this time?
If the applicant would care to answer a question, I suppose.
Thank you. I was at the subcommittee meeting. In fact, I sat next to Ms. Charbonneau at that meeting, and I share every one of her concerns that she voiced in the public comment section. Your answer at the time was you didn't extend that privacy fence because the privacy fence was only necessary to curb headlight glare west from cars in your parking lot toward the people that live along Madge. I found that answer to be pretty incomplete, to be honest with you. We require HVAC equipment to be screened. We require dumpsters to be screened, and not because of headlights, because of the way the back of properties typically look. I agree with Ms. Charbonneau's concerns that she expressed and the concerns expressed of that neighbor that live along Madge. And I would ask you to consider, among the other things that you agreed to do at the subcommittee and at the formal meeting of the Planning and Zoning Committee, that you extend the privacy fencing that you've already installed to include the entire western border of that property.
Okay.
Thank you.
There wasn't really a question there?
There was a question. I was asking if you would consider amending, if you would consider extending that fence as one of the conditions on which we might consider this application tonight.
Well, in light of the fact that my partner and I closed on this back in September of last year, and part of our due diligence process was basically to find out what violations we had from the city, from the seller, and also from the city of Brentwood. The fencing was never brought up. You know, we had 3 citations for the building to repair the parking lot, which we went ahead and replaced, to repair the retaining wall, which we went ahead and replaced. And as part of that process, and I think going back to Mrs. Charbonneau's friend's concern, was when we took out that fence, we basically did reduce that berm, but along that fence was overgrowth for quite some time. And we removed stumps, bushes, all kinds of things. So that could be part of the problem that we have here tonight, where we have some people don't like looking in the back of the building. Bear in mind that we took over the building in September. We're spending a lot of money to renovate this building. I think the back of the building will look good. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. When we get done with our building, it'll look fine back there. In terms of a fence, I think it's an additional cost that we don't need to bear right now. I don't see that being a necessary thing. When we redid the berm, we resodded the whole part of the vacant lot that Mr. White owns next door. We took out the fence on the front that had been on his property for who knows how long. Those are all costs we bore when doing this project. So I just feel like, you know, this is an additional requirement that we don't need to take on at this time.
That's the only question I had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Lee.
Thank you. Clarifications, because I'm not 100% clear.
Sure.
You and your partner own the whole parcel, or you all are owning just the Pasta Pronto section?
Yeah, for definition, we own everything from Maj going north all the way up to the Refine Shop building. We do not own the vacant land behind us.
Okay, so we're dealing with the whole parcel then that we're dealing with.
Correct.
So the question I have, I guess, then I go back to the planning and zoning. In doing the remodeling, these are things that are in the code, that we do establish that buffer zone between residential and business, and we do have the requirement of establishing that dumpsters are enclosed. But neither of those conditions were in this proposal. So I'm finding that the proposal doesn't meet our code. And I have a problem with how it gets passed out of planning and zoning to us as a non-compliant.
Mr. Mayor, I assume that's being directed to me?
Yes, sir.
I assume so. Yeah, we looked into this. In fact, this went to the site plan subcommittee on 2 different occasions, and that was brought up. And if you look at the, the zoning map, the property, behind the Pasto Pronto to the west is actually PD. That's commercial property. And so the screening is required when it abuts residential property. And so by the strict adherence to your code, it wouldn't require screening because it doesn't abut residential property or property being used for residential purposes. And in light of the substantial improvements that we saw Mr. Hagan and his partner doing to the building, not just the primary facade, but all 4 facades, we didn't want to penalize him for really investing in this building, making it a better facility, increasing his rents. We felt that we don't want to penalize him. He's not in violation of the code. And if he, we could look at the dumpster screening itself. I'm not sure if the dumpster is screened. I think there's an elevation change. But even the back of the building is going to, have new facades and parapets. So it's my understanding that it does meet section 400-2410, which addresses screening devices.
Okay. Follow-up question, Your Honor, if I may.
Okay.
All right. I will agree with you that the white property, which used to be Mr. Doherty's property, is in the PD district. But it has been, and I still believe it is, residential property in that zone. That his property thus has always been residential. We've never changed it. It was that way when we established his property to begin with. The zone we increased out. But since the house is there, and I believe Mr. White has bought it, and I think he's doing renovations with the intent of trying to go back to renting that property. So I am a little confused as to why this business butting that residential property. Because it's used as residential.
I just want to offer something for clarification, because I think maybe there's a little confusion. The property that abuts the subject property to the west is actually a vacant lot.
There's no home.
There's no home there.
And it's zoned PD according to the zoning map I was provided, your official zoning map.
So again, I'm not trying to interrupt you, Andy. I want to make sure that we're all clear. The property directly to the west is the vacant lot. There's another house that's one lot addition.
Oh, okay.
To the south.
Then I apologize.
Which is screened. Right.
Yeah.
To the,
all right.
to the west.
Alderman Saunders.
Right. I just have the question of approximately what do you think it would cost to run the fence that entire length?
Probably another $4,000 of the project.
Okay. I'm just wondering if, I understand that the project is costly, but it's on Brentwood Boulevard, it's really good, and I'm thrilled you're doing this. It looks much nicer. I really like the site plan. And I just was wondering, I know $4,000 is a lot, but if as a good neighbor, this could be done, and maybe with the hopes that the residents will go to and retain these businesses more, so that it's just not something that necessarily has to come down to code enforcement, but just as a good neighbor, good tenant between residential and commercial.
Well, I'll say the same thing I said to the subcommittee. We weren't required to replace the whole parking lot. We did it because it's the right thing to do. I think there has to be, we need a little leeway in our development here. Okay. There's some other things that I'd find, quite honestly, a higher priority that weren't addressed in the subcommittee meeting. And one of the things is there's a chain link fence on the front of the property between the refine room and our building. To me, that would be more important to address with the planter box versus in the back of the building, a stockade fence. There's some municipalities that don't even allow stockade fences because they think that they're a nuisance between houses. So I don't see what we're getting here by adding additional fence cost to my project when I can spend it somewhere else that I think would be more beneficial for the city of Brentwood and for the building.
Alderman Lockman.
Todd, could you clarify once again on the dumpsters? They do not have to be screened because there's PD behind the property?
Yeah, more particular, specifically, there's a whole vacant lot between the two. And if you go to the section, there's a section on screening that, basically doesn't require screening if it's next to a light zoning. So the site behind it is PD. The rationale being, he's improving the facade in the back. So as planners, we look for a nexus or a connection between the improvements or exactions that we require of the petitioner. And he's improving the facade on the west side. He's improving the roof. And so I don't see a connection between putting a stockade fence. Certainly, it's not required by ordinance.
Well, I'm not talking about the fence. I'm talking about as you drive by and you can see how many dumpsters he has.
Yeah, I
in his
went through the
back
file
alley.
photos, and I couldn't find a picture of the dumpster. He's not changing or modifying the dumpster location. Again, the site plan that we're looking at tonight really has to do with the facade of the building. But I can have Larson or code enforcement take a look at his dumpster to make sure it is up to code.
She brought pictures tonight. Louise has pictures of them right now.
Those weren't shared with me. So yeah, if there's a code violation, that'll come up on his building permit. There's no reason why he would be able to have any variance. And like he said, he's had, with the occupancy permit, he's had, code enforcement over there, so it's just maybe something they've overlooked.
And the other thing to bear in mind there is the northern parking lot, basically there's about 9 spaces there. The worst thing we can have happen is to block that alleyway with additional stockade fences around the dumpsters, so we can't utilize that alleyway in the back. Otherwise, we'll have people backing up on Brentwood Boulevard. And I would suggest anyone during the middle of the day go out there and try doing it. It's not advisable, and we only have 20 feet between my building and the retaining wall there. So I think anything more we do to restrict that back there, I think is problematic.
Alderman Tweed.
I just want to verify, all these concerns that are right now being brought up, the chain link fence, the dumpsters not being boxed in, those are already present, correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the way I say this, this is an improvement, and if we turn it down, those problems are already present, minus the improvements he's bringing forward. So I'm failing to see a logic why we would push this on a business owner that wants to improve the lot, why we say bring it up to another level. I'm lost in that logic.
Alderman Plufka.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How is trash removed? I know where the dumpsters are. They're located in 3 locations along the back, along that western edge, up against that cement retaining wall.
Correct.
How is trash removed? How does the truck come in? There's no way. It's too narrow in there to get a truck back there, right?
Yeah, I don't know this for certain, but I believe they push them out into the main parking lot in the morning time.
So the folks that are taking the trash out, is it all the same service, by the way, or do you leave that up to your tenants?
I leave it up to the tenants, and I believe there's only 2 back there.
Okay.
There are 3.
There are 3? Okay.
And do they use different services? Do you know?
I don't know.
That's the question I had.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor. Just want to express appreciation for the enlightenment from Acting Director Stryler about the code. The code language is important. I understand that we have a PD district adjacent there, but I wanted to ask the petitioner. By the way, we're glad. I'm happy and excited that you are approaching the city with the I guess appreciated difference between what we're going to see in the future and what it is now. The question is, are there some of the new tenants that may be coming? Are there new tenants? Are there extensions? The Pasta House Company has been, I guess, a welcome addition to Brentwood for a long period of time, but there is nothing in, I guess what I'm asking is there's nothing in the tenant schedule that will be changing as a function of your renovations.
No, in fact, I can give you an update on that. The Pasta House, we have they renewed their lease, and just recently Clockmaster renewed their lease just the past week, and I think he's been there 20-plus years, I believe. And then we have 1 vacancy next to the Clockmaster building. That young lady moved out. And then we have a insurance company moving into the N Bay.
And I can comment on that one. I negotiated that lease on behalf of State Farm Agent Pam Thornton.
Thank you.
Alderman Leahy.
I'd like to make an amendment to the bill if I could, or should we wait till the second reading?
Second reading.
Okay, be happy to do that.
No further questions? Thank you. Thanks. Mr. City Attorney, second reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6051, second reading and consideration for adoption, an ordinance granting site plan approval to 2533-2539 Brentwood Boulevard, Pasta Pronto, for a new facade and related improvements which require site plan approval pursuant to Title IV, Chapter 400 of the Brentwood Code of Ordinances, case 1601, South Brentwood Partners.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to prefect Bill 6051 into ordinance form.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the board perfect bill number 6051 into ordinance form. Is there any discussion? Alderman Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will agree with Alderman Tooley's arrangement that you are looking at a proposal to improve the property, which is beneficial to the city of Brentwood. I also am a little disappointed with the planning and zoning because I think it's fair to ask that the building come into code like all other buildings if we had a new business coming in. So I'd like to make a recommendation that we amend Bill 6051 to incorporate the enclosures of the trash haulers out in the parking lot down on the southwest side to work with sometime within the calendar year when they come up for renewal for their business license. That gives the applicant time to address the issue and to come into code compliance before we go for a renewal, and he doesn't have to do it instantaneously to get his permit.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to take that motion as out of order.
Okay.
The reason is, Andy, just so we're clear, you said that you were disappointed that the P&Z didn't force him to come into compliance, but Acting Director Stryler, in fact, has just provided the board with the fact that they are in complete compliance. So that's one.
Well, that's his assumption based on the fact that he wasn't aware that the trash containers are currently there without being required to be fenced in. I believe that
he said there is no requirement.
I believe you'll find when we review the code that it is a requirement that trash containers be enclosed. And thus, when he sends his inspectors out and they find that, it may have been an overlooked issue up to this point. I don't think it's fair to ask the applicant to immediately come into compliance. I'm offering him at least the rest of the year to come into compliance.
No, well, okay, but just so you understand me, no, wait, hold on.
Go ahead.
All right, we're Director Stryler, are you aware that this property, as this site plan is developed, is not in compliance with our code in any way?
I'm not aware of any non-complying issues at this point.
Okay, so I thought that's what you said, so I just wanted to be sure.
And the reason that they're here tonight is for your purview, and then it will go on to a building permit, in which time they'll look at it, and if there's any code infractions at that point, they will be repaired. But I'm not aware of any, and I'd certainly bring them up to their attention if I knew of any. In fact, the Planning Commission asked us to look into the fencing issue, and I quoted the section that says if they're adjacent to residential, you don't have to provide the fencing.
Okay, and to go back to the motion, and just again, I'm not the premise of your motion is false, and therefore the motion would be out of order. Is all I'm saying. So if you want to make a motion to amend that doesn't include the language that they need to come into compliance, then I'm all for it. Or at least I won't rule it out of order. but I just don't want to we can't make a motion requiring them to come into compliance when they're already in compliance. Do you see what I'm saying?
What district is this property?
I'm under the strong impression that our current code requires businesses that have an outside trash container to enclose it. And I believe that is how our code does read for all businesses. Thus, if they come back up for a business permit and the code guys look at it and say, oh, by the way, we missed this, you're going to make him required to come into compliance before you issue his permit. And I'm trying to make sure that if that happens, that we give him basically the next 9 months grace period to come into compliance, so that when he comes up for his renewal of his business license, he's had time to come into compliance instead of doing it instantaneously. Because I do believe our code does require businesses to have it enclosed.
It doesn't. Okay, I'm going to have to take.
I yield to Mr. Slough.
I'm going to take the motion under advisement.
Okay.
I'm not saying no, but
go ahead, Keith.
Alderman Slusser.
Maybe after a year you'll get it right.
I apologize, sir.
Let me read from our code. after May 20th, 1985, upon the change in ownership of any commercially or industrial zone property, a screening device shall be constructed along the property line adjoining or contiguous to property that is classified by the zoning code as a residential district.
That's fencing. I'm talking about the trash container.
And it is addressed, but I would offer that we're not changing the dumpster location. It's a pre-existing condition that we're not touching. Why would we penalize him for doing the improvements to the facade for conditions that's pre-existing?
You're arguing, if I may, Your Honor?
Sure.
You're arguing that he has a grandfathered in, yet you have a change of ownership, which makes him come into compliance to the code as it currently stands.
If I may.
Yeah, please.
This is, what I'm looking at is a regulation in the zoning code. Pre-existing nonconformities are allowed to continue, even whether there's a change of ownership or not. It's only when the use is abandoned that the pre-existing non-conforming condition must be brought into compliance with subsequently enacted zoning regulations. So change of ownership does not matter. If there's a bar on the corner and it's against the zoning ordinance to have a bar on the corner, he can sell that bar to anybody he wants and they can operate a bar. Okay? So zoning regulations are applicable to new activities undertaken after the date of adoption. A pre-existing non-conforming circumstance with respect to a zoning ordinance that requires enclosure of trash receptacles would only come into play if the location of the trash receptacles was changed and the pre-existing non-conforming condition is abandoned by the property owner, whether it's the original owner or a subsequent owner.
Thank you, sir.
I was just like to add to that, and unless I'm much mistaken, what I heard Acting Director Stryler say is that they are not required to screen the trash receptacles because they abut commercial property. They abut a PD zone, therefore there is no requirement to screen them. Now, whether or not, is that what I heard you say?
No.
Yeah, the Planning Commission directed me to look at just the screening in general. Originally, they wanted to screen the whole thing. It wasn't specifically for the trash, it was just to screen it because you could see it from the residential property. We investigated it, it wasn't required by code, and again, there is no proposed change in the dumpster locations, so they weren't screened, so it's a pre-existing condition.
Just so I'm clear, and again, I just want to be clear so that I can coordinate the debate here. Are there two separate issues then? There's an issue with screening and there's an issue with the dumpsters, and those are separate?
Both of which are addressed and they're in compliance with the zoning code. Now, that part of the site plan review, you all, just like the Planning Commission, can approve, could recommend whatever you want. But it's not, don't recommend it because it's a code requirement, because that's inaccurate.
That's what I'm trying to get a handle on. Okay, so I think I understand, thank you. I think it might be. Alderman Saunders.
From what I understand, it would be difficult to screen these dumpsters because of the way the trash is taken out. I mean, to be able to maneuver the dumpsters out of an enclosed area and back to the parking lot every day and then move them back, is that my understanding of how the trash is being taken out?
Yeah, I would say so. and again, there's a grade separation where it's about 3 to 4 feet. I mean, you can only see one of the dumpsters, even on the commercial lot. But I don't know if there's a place on site that would allow a trash enclosure because of he circulates all the way around the building. So I don't think there's an easy fix to this. So it's not that simple. You need to have access to those trash cans. Maybe they can try to have a lower profile dumpster, but there is definitely a grade separation that would hide those dumpsters from a commercial property, though. I mean, you're screening them from a PD property. And if you look at the pictures that were taken from the subject property to the west, looking onto the property, you can't see the dumpsters hardly. The photos where you can see them are taken from the petitioner's property.
No, they're taken from the sidewalk.
along Madge Avenue.
Nice zoom on the camera.
Yeah.
Any further
Can I
discussion
ask a
on that?
question?
Yeah.
I was under the impression that the question, or what Alderman Plufka was referring to was the fact that there's two different kinds of fencing that run along the back of the property. One is more aesthetically pleasing, which is the wooden fence, and then it stops, and then it continues as the chain link. So I think really we've kind of gotten talking a lot about the dumpsters and hiding the dumpsters. I don't really know. I don't think that was initially the point. It was just asking the gentleman if he would consider, continuing the fence to make it look more aesthetically pleasing from the residential standpoint.
That was the request from Planning Commission, simply that. Which then said, well, Todd, does he have to do it? Can we require this? And I said, well, not by code.
Thank you. I think you made it a lot easier than the rest of us.
That was.
Kind of got off that.
Any further discussion? Alderman Pluff.
I just want to make one observation. There's been a lot of conversations about the fact that the property immediately to the west that abuts this property is PD and therefore for commercial development. But if we look at the property itself, I believe, and I'm thinking back to Boy Soap, Grow Soap, so I may be wrong about this assumption, but I believe that it's less than a full acre and is not independently developable as a commercial piece of property because it's less than a full acre. So I believe that it could, although it's zoned commercial, I don't think it can be developed commercially independent of cobbled together with some other piece of property. So that's one of the reasons I would imagine why it's been vacant for so many years. And to me, that kind of puts up my point about the aesthetics, is that while it is technically commercial property, it is by all course and effect a residential piece of property. It's a piece of land that has not been developed, in anybody's history. And I don't think it's likely to be developed because of its unusual situation of being non-conforming as it sits in terms of its ability to be developed as an independent commercial piece of property. And so it's likely to be vacant for a while until something about that changes. Somebody decides to develop it as a residential piece of property or something else happens. And to me, that brings up the whole point about why it's more important, in my opinion, that there be a fence that extends all the way to the northern border of that property. I understand it's not required by the ordinance, and I'm not telling you or suggesting otherwise. I'm just asking that as a part of this great development and this improvement to this property, that we incorporate that for the benefit of the people that live on that street. That's sum total of my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Leahy, have you given any additional thought to your motion, or what shall we do with it? I'm willing to have you make a motion that doesn't include the language of bringing him into compliance, because I just don't believe that that's true. So if you'd like to restate, or...
I'll take a shot at it. I would like to amend Bill 6051 to add a term under section, well, this one doesn't have the other sections to it, that upon request of the applicant for a business permit, if code issues have been found that are first-time acknowledgement to the owners, that the Board of Aldermen grant a 9-month extension to come into compliance.
For anything? I can't allow that amendment
For
either.
anything?
Because you're talking about enforcement of an existing ordinance, and we can't do that, especially not in a site plan ordinance. So that's...
Okay. Then I withdraw my motion.
Okay. Alderman Musan.
I just had one question, clarification, Alderman Plufka. That location is zoned commercial. You could build something commercial there. The way it is right now, you cannot do PD there because it's under an acre. Is that correct?
It would be a legally non-conforming lot. It is zoned
commercial,
PD.
even as GC?
What's that?
As just general, not as PD, but just as general, as GC?
Yeah, I can't speculate what could go in or what would go in.
I mean, if it's zoned commercially and you just put a commercial use, do you have to necessarily have it be planned development?
No, it could go under one of the other zoning districts, I suppose.
And is it non-conforming then? If they put in a small?
Well, if you have let's say, for example, the PD, planned development, has a minimum lot size of 2 acres, and maybe it's not 2 acres, it would be legally non-conforming.
I just didn't know what the requirements are, like, say, of just general commercial. I was just curious as to that. Like, is that a requirement of an acre, 2 acres?
Well, what you get into is a takings, of the Fifth Amendment. They have, you can't just, the zoning code can't say, hey, you have no rights to this land.
Right.
So they would be able to do something right now, supposing it's zoned commercial, they wouldn't be forced to do something residential.
Right. But I mean, all I was saying is it's definitely non-conforming as PD, but it might not be as another one of the other.
I didn't look at I don't know the area of that lot. I don't know if it goes all the way to Madge. I don't know if that whole thing, I really don't know the
Okay,
the
that
square
was what
footage.
I was just saying is
I don't know
yes,
the
we
lot
know it's
size.
non-conforming as PD, but let's say just general commercial and there's a small little, like, a State Farm office that's going to go there, it might be conforming under that circumstance. Is that correct?
Or the petitioner may want to extend his property onto that, and then it would be an extension of what he has.
Okay.
I think if I was that property owner, maybe I would be calling Bob at this point. And then he would have to put a big berm and a screening device and all that stuff that you guys would like to have when it, on the side that abuts residential.
Okay, thank you.
He's got some beautiful renderings and elevations that you haven't looked at yet.
No, I have looked at
Alderman Lockmiller.
I just have one quick question. Is under PD, you could put a residential home on it,
Yes.
correct?
Oh, I mean, I don't know.
There's a residential home on one of the parcels now. If somebody wanted to put a residential home on the other parcel, now you've got residential up against commercial. I mean, I don't want to throw out a hypothetical.
Well, the screening specifically says you have to screen it when it's next to a residential district. A PD is, I don't think is that a residential district?
No, you're right.
I mean, we could look at this 9, 10 different ways and put the new planner on the spot.
Not tonight, we can't.
He's meeting.
Is there any further discussion?
I just didn't mean to look at
No,
it.
no,
I just
no,
wanted to say that there is a possibility. That was all I was trying to say.
Yeah, we could, there's probably a lot of possibilities we can go through if we had time.
But I do agree the renderings, and I thanked him when he was here, are very nice.
I think it's a nice improvement. I think it'll really, kind of set the tone. It'd be nice to, hopefully other property owners and business owners won't be intimidated by this process and maybe do the same thing to enhance their buildings and enhance their sites and not feel that they'll get condemned for doing so.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor, just a point of order. Regarding the bill language itself for 6051, the second whereas clause in section 1 or 2, it seems in spirit to refer to the predications that are included in the synopsis, but I don't know that they're detailed. Is that required, and do we need those?
No, the whereas clauses are simply preparatory to the actual ordinance. So.
And we'll keep the actual elevations that were approved, those will be part of the ordinance as well. And so those will be in attachments.
Yeah. Just want to make sure the predications are incorporated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on bill number 6051? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman Manistar.
Yes.
Alderman Plufka.
No.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Yes.
Alderman Slusser.
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Bill number 6051 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen and upon signature by the mayor becomes ordinance number 4704.
Okay, thank you. Item number 12G on the agenda, bill number 6052. Mr. City Attorney, first reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6052, first reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to execute a professional services agreement on behalf of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, with O.R. Colon Associates for right-of-way negotiator services for the Hanley Industrial Court project.
Okay, thank you. Synopsis, please. Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor. Bill 6052 covers our agreement for the ROW right-of-way negotiator services. Topic of discussion earlier, the bill is for an ordinance authorizing the mayor and the city administrator of our city to approve an agreement for right-of-way negotiator services covering the Hanley Industrial Court project, STP, and that is number 5577-632, a federally funded project consisting of sidewalks and pedestrian lighting improvements, which will bring much-needed pedestrian adjustments to an area that experiences a heavy volume of pedestrian traffic on a regular basis. Staff requests a first and second reading as we're having, as this is the time-sensitive phase of the project schedule, all contained within the language of Bill number 6052.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Alderman Leahy.
Bola, if I may, was R.O. Cohen used for the other project that we did?
They were.
Thank you. So they are very familiar with the area?
They are.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, Mr. City Attorney, second reading by title only, please.
Yes, sir. Bill number 6052, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to execute a professional services agreement on behalf of the city of Brentwood, Missouri with O.R. Colon Associates for right-of-way negotiator services for the Hanley Industrial Court project.
Okay, thank you.
Motion, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Motion to perfect Bill 6052 in
Second.
ordinance form.
Second, sorry.
It's been moved and seconded that the board perfect Bill number 6052 into ordinance form. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman Manistar?
Yes.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
Alderman Slusser?
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Bill number 6052 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen and upon signature by the mayor becomes ordinance number 4705.
Okay, thank you. Item number 13 on the agenda, we have no resolutions this evening. Item number 14 on the agenda, accounts against the city, Alderman Slusser.
I have reviewed the list with the city administrator, and I recommend its approval in the amount of $368,920.19.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the boards approve the warrant list as submitted. Is there any discussion? Alderman Leahy.
If I may, I'd like a clarification because I'm a little confused. I'm on page 2 of 4, Bola. I'm down at the Planning Design Studio. You have two columns marked budget. I got a $27,782 and a $33,653. Are those two different calendar year budgets? Is what those two budgets are?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and we're only approving the $4,400 that he spent at this
Exactly,
point? Okay.
right.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving the warrant list as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Warrant list is approved. Okay, item number 15 on the agenda, reports of committees and department heads. Under my report, I just actually want to clarify a couple of things that just happened up here because I think it's important that we all understand them. So, you know, normally I try to stay out of the debate when we get to that part of a bill. I just, you know, occasionally I'll chime in, but usually it's with information that I think is pertinent to the entire debate and helpful to the entire board. When Alderman Leahy made his motion and I got involved in the debate, what I was doing was, it's important for me to understand exactly what's being discussed so I can rule on the propriety of the motions that are being made. And so we can't just do anything we want to up here. We're actually bound by the Roberts Rules of Order, and we're bound by statutes, and we're bound by our own existing ordinances. So if we propose to do something up here that I believe would be violating an existing ordinance that's on the books, then I have to rule that out of order because we're not allowed to violate an existing ordinance that's on the books just because we want to. That's not allowed. So that's kind of what was going on up here, and I think Alderman Leahy understood that, but it might have been confusing out there, and then it didn't help that I got confused. So, you know, but I wanted to explain that to everybody just so they could understand what was going on. The other thing that I want to say is there is a mayor's happy hour coming up on Thursday of this week. I believe that is the 11th? 10th? 11th? I can't remember. Today is the 7th, so it's probably the 10th. Anyway, Mayor's Happy Hour takes place over at the Rec Center, and it takes place at 5:30 on Thursday afternoon. I would encourage everyone, and that includes the Board of Aldermen, to stop on by and have a bit of an old chinwag with Ms. Charbonneau and I. She's always there. You feel free, seriously, feel free. It's a great opportunity. Eric always puts out some nice snacks for us, and it's really just a nice time to sit around and talk about whatever's on your mind. So I encourage everybody in the audience, everybody at home, and certainly the Board of Aldermen to come on out. The second thing is to watch your mailboxes, or in my case, your email boxes. The newsletter will be coming out, and I wrote a rather lengthy portion of that newsletter with a lot of good information on Brentwood Boulevard and a couple of other things that are going on. So if you have a chance to read that, I won't bore everybody with that at the meeting here, but if you have a chance to read that, I think there's a couple of topics that are very timely, and I encourage everybody to have a look at that if you want to know what's going on with Brentwood Boulevard, the comprehensive plan. I hit a couple of other really important topics in there too. So please look out for that, and if you don't get a copy and you want a copy, just contact our Parks Department or our City Hall, and we'll be happy to get you a copy. Two other announcements. May 7th coming up is the Shred Day, the Community Shred Day. And this is a very popular program where the folks from Shred It, I think it's Shred It, come out, and whoever we use for our shredding services, they come out and they let us throw just about anything we want to into their giant shredding machine.
Shred and protect.
Shred and protect, thank you. Sorry, I want to make a plug, but I didn't even know who to give it to. So May 7th, Saturday from 9 to 11. That is, Shred and Protect Document Services right here for me. Saturday, May 21st from 11 to 1. One of the most popular events that we have every year is an open house at the fire department. So come get a tour of the fire department, let your kids play on the fire trucks, and I'm a particular fan of their hot dogs and bratwurst, so there you go. Saturday, May 1st from 11 to 1 p.m. That's it for the mayor's report. Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor. I wondered if you could comment. I know we've been watching this unfolding proposed legislation from Chesterfield regarding the Pool City sharing of taxes. That seems like it might be gaining some momentum one way or another. Do you have any update or information?
Not that I'm prepared to share this evening. I know what you're talking about. I was actually out at the Missouri Municipal League meeting that took place at I don't remember if it was the end of February. But anyway, I was out there. We got an update on that. Unfortunately, I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure I completely understand it yet. Okay. So if you would let me have 2 more weeks to get up to speed on that, I'd be happy to make a report on that.
Thank you.
Okay, that's my report. Public Safety Committee. Alderman Plufka.
Thank you. Normally, Public Safety would meet on the third Thursday, and that's March 17th, in honor of my grandmother, Margaret Alice Patrick. I do not want to have the meeting on that day if I can help it. Is it possible to move it to the fourth Thursday, the 24th? Public Safety? And I guess I can. I don't know exactly when.
Can we check the calendar and then circle?
Yeah. So I don't believe Public Safety is going to meet on the 17th. We are going to meet and perhaps on the fourth Thursday.
The fourth Thursday is Holy Week, and that is a
Monday,
very
Thursday.
solemn day.
Oh, that's true.
We'll have trouble there.
I didn't realize Easter was the 27th.
Can we check the calendar and then
It's not till
circle back
April,
to the
is it?
committee?
I will report back and.
Okay, very good.
talk. Thank you.
Okay, Public Works. Alderman Tui.
Staff.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Could I ask a question
Sure.
of Public Safety?
Sure.
Are we going to have the results for the McKnight-Sonora crosswalk at the March meeting?
That is the plan.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, Alderman Tui.
Okay, staff recently applied
McKnight,
for a
Sonora, did I say?
grant with the STP for $1.8 million for the Manchester Road corridor, which the board discussed a meeting or two ago. Additionally, next meeting will be this Wednesday here in council chambers at 4:30. It'll be an important meeting because we will be talking about a program FEMA has in which they are willing to purchase homes that are in floodplains and the criteria that it would take for. So I hope all members can make it, and let me know if they're not going to. So,
Yeah, just for members of the audience, what Alderman Tui is talking about is FEMA has a program where they purchase perennially flooding properties. And at the meeting on Wednesday, they're going to be discussing Brentwood's possible participation in that program for some of our perennially flooding properties. So if you're interested in flooding, particularly people down on Manchester Road and the parts of Brentwood there that flood, hop on out to the meeting at 4:30 on Wednesday. Planning and Development.
Yeah, Planning and Zoning Commission has a meeting this Wednesday to consider rezoning the northwest corner of Hanley and Manchester. That's, maybe you've heard the Metro in Manchester. Anyway, it's zone PD. They're looking at a change in zoning to UD for an apartment building.
Okay. Planning and Zoning meets on Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so
7 p.m. right here.
Wednesday at 7 right here. Okay. Ways and Means. Alderman Slusser.
It's been a long meeting, so I'll keep my soapbox rant short. But for some of the residents that were here and some of the staff that was here, there was one member of Ways and Means Committee that showed up on Thursday night, that left work during tax season to show up, and only one member of the committee had or took the time to actually notify us that we weren't going to have a meeting. There was an attempted email that didn't go through, but I guess I'd ask for respect from other board members to actually notify staff, and so that they're not wasting their evenings and citizens aren't wasting their evenings, and we're not paying for videographers to show up. So if you're not going to be able to make it to a meeting, if you could have the decency to let the chairman and the staff know so that they can either cancel the meeting or make different arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney.
No report, sir.
Madam City Administrator.
No report, Your Honor.
Madam Excise Commissioner.
No report.
Madam Library Consultant.
No report.
And I don't have any report, but in response to Alderman Kramer, I will very definitely be getting back to you on the tax issue. That's an important issue, and I know everybody's interested. So that's one for my to-do list. Historical Society.
No report.
All right.
You're going to be here Wednesday.
Item number 16. Announcements. Alderman Kramer.
Well, since you put it that way, just a brief moment, I am very pleased, fortunate, and blessed to have received, by the hand of God, our first child last Thursday evening at 8:47 p.m. So that would be first addition to our family. And so anyway, thanks to all the people who may have had prayers for us or have been checking in on the progress. And so thank you.
Name?
Congratulations. Hey, a name?
Yes. Eli Joseph Kramer was born last Thursday evening.
Outstanding. Any further announcements? Alderwoman Saunders.
The next Ward 1 meeting will be Tuesday, May 10th. We had decided at the end of last year, Alderman Plufka and I talked that we would make the meetings quarterly. And so since the first one was in February, then the second month of the second quarter would be May 10th. And we're going to see maybe if we're going to discuss between ourselves if there's a way maybe to increase the attendance. And it'll especially be important with the upcoming update of the comprehensive plan so that we can get more input into that also. So it'll be May 10th at 6:30 at this location. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ward 3 monthly meeting for the month of March will be Tuesday night, the 29th of March, 7 p.m. here at the council chambers, and all are invited.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Okay, seeing none. Item number 17 on the agenda, new business. Alderman Leahy.
Your Honor, I had asked about 3 months back for the city to look into the requirement on the minutes, if the minutes, according to state statute, had to be written, or if electronic means would be an acceptable form of conducting the minutes. And I don't recall if we've ever gotten a report back as to that finding.
Okay. That's not really new business, so.
I'm sorry.
No, no, I'm sorry. It's just, new business is typically when you put something new before, propose a new action for the board to take. So since that doesn't really,
I'll check in with
I'll
the
ask
city
city
administrator
administrator to follow up with you. Yeah, absolutely. Alderman Saunders.
I'm not certain then this is new business, but since you mentioned you negotiated the lease for State Farm, have you changed your prospect about the White and Brentwood Boulevard property?
You're right, that's not new business.
Well, I mean, you've come before the board when I was an alderman early and you were mayor asking for extensions, so an update then?
Okay, yeah, so let me, if the board will indulge, because I actually have I'm going to ask the board for a motion, another motion. So yeah, let me give you the 2-minute version. So the property at the corner of White and Brentwood Boulevard was, we had developed a site plan to turn it into an office for my wife's office. We got the site plan approved, and we would have liked nothing better than to build that building. Unfortunately, the Department of Natural Resources had other ideas. After 4 years of wrangling with the Department of Natural Resources, actually, we're entering year 5, we're almost 5 years into it now. They have not yet signed off on what's called a no further action letter for the property. So what we have done is taken up in our desire to get back onto Brentwood Boulevard, we took a 5-year lease with Mr. Hagan, and we'll be moving into that property. We do plan to develop that property at some point into the site plan will probably change somewhat, because at the time, the plan, if you remember, was to grow my wife's business fairly significantly on that location. Unfortunately, 5 years from now, growing the business may not be the best plan for our family, but we may look into doing some sort of residential / a residence above a commercial development, something like that. So it's not out of the question. We just simply couldn't wait any longer to get back onto Brentwood Boulevard. And in the meantime, as you notice, we've got at least to the front people for a whopping, $200 a month or something, so that they can use it as what they call a boneyard, which it's living up to every bit of that name. But my hope in doing that was that it would move along the Brentwood Boulevard project, and we were happy to let them have it for next to nothing so that they could get on with it.
I guess it should have been under mayor report, sorry.
Yeah.
But do you know why the Brentwood Boulevard project wasn't worked on during the winter?
Yeah, actually I do. It's actually in my newsletter, so I won't steal my own thunder. But please look at your newsletter. There's a fairly comprehensive discussion of that in the newsletter. So.
Good, thank you.
And if the board would indulge me a little bit further, I have a bit of a problem. My family is going out of town for spring break, and we had originally planned to go the long weekend prior to the 17th, but that didn't work out, and now we've ended up having to go the long weekend around the 17th, extending past the 21st. I can catch a flight back from Miami on Monday, but it's somewhat costly, and I will leave my wife with my 3 children to drive all the way back home alone, which will have me sleeping in the doghouse for quite some time, I'm sure. So if the Board of Aldermen would be so kind as to consider changing the date of the meeting next, I would appreciate it. Our itinerary calls for us to return back to town late on Tuesday, so the earliest we could do it is Wednesday. Andy has pointed out, which I was not aware of, not being Catholic myself, that is Ash Wednesday.
No, Holy Week.
Middle of Holy Week.
Oh, sorry, not Ash. I did start the Holy Week. So I don't know if my original thought was we could do it on Thursday, but Holy Thursday might not be the best day for a meeting. So, and certainly Good Friday's out of the question, etc. I guess what I would do is just entertain a motion or maybe a resolution from the board that if a suitable time can be found to change the meeting, that the board would allow that to happen. So. If somebody would want to make that motion, I'd entertain it. If not, we'll have a meeting on the 21st. I'll just fly home early.
Motion to potentially change the meeting from the 21st to Monday night, the 28th, at the rec center, which alleviates the problem with, I believe, court being in this building at the time. But if the room's available and the board could meet then.
I'll second that motion.
That works for me.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's been moved and seconded that the board reschedule the regularly scheduled meeting for March 21st to March 28th at 7 p.m. at the rec center. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of the resolution say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great.
Who seconded it?
Beg your pardon?
Who did the second?
Maureen. Sorry, no, Maureen made the motion and,
No,
sorry.
I made the
Andy.
second.
No, she
Andy made the
seconded.
motion.
Yeah, okay, good. Got it. I thought Tom seconded it. As long as we got it done. So our next meeting will be on March the 28th at the Rec Center. So for those of you, we'll of course post that and everything. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Item 18, hearing of any matter of public interest upon the request of any person present. Would anyone care to address the Board of Aldermen? Please come forward. State your name. You'll get 3 minutes. Or slightly longer if you're a regular customer.
Karen Smith on Harrison. So I appreciated this discussion tonight on the applicant that brought forth the improvements for the Pasta House property. As a new member of Planning and Zoning, I am still learning about what we can and cannot ask applicants to do. I'm also taking an economic development class that complements a P&Z class that I took earlier in the fall. And although, we may not have been able to ask the Pasta House applicant to make the improvements that I think some of the discussion here entailed, based on code, I do feel that we may have missed an opportunity for making a property improvement on that property. I think it starts with our comprehensive plan. This is a plug, but I think it starts with the comprehensive plan. There are some things that we can do. I'm learning from these courses that I'm taking. There's things that we can do to help guide the applicants. I feel bad for this applicant because he really did get kind of raked over the coals. We had similar discussions at P&Z, maybe not to the level of as in-depth, but I think it's helpful for the applicants when they come forward if we can tell them, provide them with guidelines as to what our city is looking for, and I don't think we really have that to be able to help them. And so we had a lot of discussions at P&Z in the site plan review about whether this particular enhancements that he was making would be appealing for everyone. Like the enhancements that he was making maybe would have been more appealing to the younger generation and people that like kind of more of a contemporary look, and some people like more of a kind of a brick, old town look. But we don't have any guidelines to give developers right now as to what the city is looking for, and so like we could even put in there that when you're coming forward with an application and asking for improvements, this is what you would be asked to do by code. But then you can also have things in there like they'll look very favorably if you also make these other types of enhancement to the property, like making sure that improving your fencing, those sorts of things. So it's just a plug to encourage us to get the comprehensive plan back on track, because I think it helps our developers when they're coming forward. It also makes all of our jobs easier when we have to approve these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to come forward and address the board? Seeing none. Item number 19, well, that's been moved. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the board adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned.